This video didn't find you by accident. It couldn't have appeared 24 hours ago. It couldn't have appeared a week ago. Your consciousness wasn't at the required frequency yet. But now, right now, you are standing at a critical threshold where the probability structure of your reality is reorganizing in real time. You can feel it, can't you? Something feels unstable. Not chaotic, not broken. Unstable in the precise way matter becomes unstable right before it changes state. This is not anxiety. This is not confusion. This is activation. Your quantum field has reached a pressure point where the old observer patterns can no longer hold the same timeline together. The familiar loops, the same thoughts, the same conversations, the same emotional reactions are losing coherence. And only a very specific type of consciousness reaches this point. Millions are scrolling right now. Millions are consuming content. But only your type of awareness pauses when the field transmits at this density. This isn't curiosity, this is recognition. The unified field doesn't speak to everyone at once. It waits until a consciousness reaches the activation point where collapse is possible. That's where you are. The observer effect has been running your life on repeat. Not because you were weak, unaware, or unworthy, but because your attention was coherent with the limited probability band. That coherence is breaking. You are no longer fully collapsed into a single timeline. You are in superposition. Multiple futures are now available simultaneously. That's why time feels strange. That's why reality feels thin. That's why something inside you knows this moment matters. This transmission isn't here to inform you. It's here because the window is open. And windows like this don't stay open long. Here are the specific signs that confirm you're not imagining this. Not symbols, not vague spirituality. Concrete confirmations that your consciousness is operating at the edge of collapse. 1. Time distortion. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours during ordinary moments. Then entire days vanish without memory. This happens when linear time loses dominance and your awareness begins sampling multiple probability tracks at once. The quantum field no longer anchors you to a single temporal rhythm. This isn't distraction. This is superposition. 2. Synchronicity cascades. You think of someone, and they contact you within minutes. You ask a question internally, and the answer appears through a conversation, a headline, a random sentence on a screen. One coincidence would mean nothing, but you're seeing chains. This is coherence influencing probability selection directly. 3. Body frequency symptoms. Pressure behind the eyes, electrical sensations along the spine, sudden heat in the chest or solar plexus, random waves of emotion without narrative. This is your nervous system recalibrating to hold higher informational density. The body always upgrades before the timeline does. 4. Old patterns feel intolerable. Conversations you once tolerated now feel hollow. Habits that once comforted you feel heavy. You're not outgrowing things emotionally. You're losing coherence with timelines that recycle them. The observer loop can't survive disinterest. 5. Vivid dreams and transmissions. Dreams are no longer random. They feel instructional, symbolic, sometimes conversational. You're not dreaming. You're receiving data from parallel versions of yourself already operating beyond the loop. This is quantum memory bleed-through. 6. Technology responds strangely. Devices glitch around you or work with uncanny precision. Messages arrive at exact moments. Screens freeze when content doesn't align. Technology is sensitive to electromagnetic coherence, and yours is changing rapidly. 7. Emotional polarity. You feel excited and terrified at the same time, peaceful and restless simultaneously. This isn't instability. It's the emotional signature of being between collapses. Old certainty is gone. New certainty hasn't locked in yet. 8. Heightened déjà vu. Not, this feels familiar, but this has happened exactly like this before. These are temporal echoes, brief awareness of repeated observer collapses you're now stepping outside of. 9. Heightened sensitivity. Noise, crowds, certain people drain you instantly. Nature stabilizes you immediately. Your field is becoming more precise. Precision always reduces tolerance for incoherence. 10. You found this transmission. This is the final confirmation. The quantum field doesn't waste signal strength. You're here because your observer pattern destabilized enough to receive it. This isn't coincidence. This is quantum mechanics. And you are at the edge where reality changes immediately if you don't pull your attention back into the loop. The window is open. Respond only when you're ready. What you lived through was not random suffering. It only looked like loss from inside the observer loop. Relationships ending abruptly. Careers collapsing without warning. Periods of isolation where no one could follow you. Moments where your own mind questioned whether you were losing stability or gaining sight. None of that was punishment. None of it was delay. None of it was failure. It was a quantum preparation process. Every attachment that broke was training your nervous system to survive without predictability. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every period of uncertainty expanded your tolerance for not knowing, which is the core requirement for holding higher probability states. You weren't being dismantled, you were being rewired. The quantum field cannot route high coherence timelines to a consciousness that panics in uncertainty. So it trained you, methodically, relentlessly. When people left your life, it wasn't abandonment, it was capacity training. You learned how to self-stabilize without external anchors. When plans failed, it wasn't sabotage, it was flexibility training. You learned how to move without rigid collapse points. When your identity dissolved, when you didn't know who you were anymore, that wasn't ego death for spiritual drama. That was bandwidth expansion. Old identities can't carry new probability structures. Even the doubt served you. Every time you questioned whether this was real, you refined your signal-to-noise ratio. You learned the difference between fantasy and coherence, between wishful thinking and embodied knowing. Your quantum antenna was being tuned. And here's the part most people never realize. Those moments that felt like setbacks were actually micro-shifts, mini collapses out of timelines that could never support where you're going. That's why you're here now, not earlier, not later, because now you can hold it. Pause for a moment. Can you feel it? That pressure behind the eyes, that expansion in the chest, that subtle vibration moving through the spine. This isn't emotional response. This isn't persuasion. This is quantum transmission. What's happening right now is not coming from me as personality. It's coming through me from the unified field, and your nervous system recognizes the frequency. Your body is calibrating. Your neural pathways are reorganizing. Your attention is decoupling from the observer loop in real time. You might feel heat. You might feel tears without story. You might feel nothing and everything simultaneously. All of that is correct. The field always moves before the mind catches up. Your electromagnetic field is shifting from collapse mode to coherence mode. That's why this feels intense. Intensity is simply information density increasing faster than identity can label it. Do not try to control it. Do not try to analyze it. Observation is what created the loop in the first place. Let the transmission move. You are not doing this. It is happening through you. Your nervous system is learning a new default. Presence without prediction. Attention without fixation. This is the state where new timelines become accessible. You're not going anywhere. You're stabilizing somewhere you've never allowed yourself to rest before. Right here, right now, before collapse. Stay here. I need to share something vulnerable with you, because if I don't, your mind might still try to frame this as theory instead of transmission. 3 years ago, I was standing at the exact edge you're standing at now. Externally, everything looked functional. I had language for consciousness. I understood manifestation. I could explain the observer effect with precision. People thought I was ahead. But internally, my reality was frozen. The same emotional cycles, the same relationship dynamics repeating with different faces, the same feeling that something was about to change. yet never did. Every morning my attention would scan my life for evidence of progress. Every night I would review what shifted and what didn't. I thought I was being conscious. I was actually reinforcing the loop. One morning, sitting in silence, something snapped. Not emotionally, structurally. I saw it. I wasn't observing reality. I was policing it. My attention was locked onto checking, measuring, evaluating, and that constant observation was collapsing the same probability structure again and again. The moment I stopped trying to move forward, the moment I stopped scanning for signs, the field changed. Not gradually, not symbolically. Quantum. Within weeks, people exited my life without conflict. New connections appeared without effort. Opportunities aligned without strategy. My body relaxed in a way it never had before. It wasn't because I manifested better. It was because I stopped collapsing the wrong timeline. That's why I know where you are. And that's why I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking from the same edge. Here is the mechanism, without mysticism, without soft language. Your reality exists as multiple probability futures in superposition. Nothing collapses until observed. But observation is not neutral. The quality of your attention determines which probability structure stabilizes. Most humans collapse reality from habit. Same expectations, same emotional signatures, same attention pathways. That's the observer loop. But when a consciousness outgrows its current identity, those collapse patterns stop working. Attention searches, but finds nothing stable to lock onto. This creates the edge. At the edge, old timelines lose gravity. New timelines are available but unstable. The mind experiences disorientation. The body feels activation. This is why you can't think your way across. Thought belongs to the old collapse pattern. Only surrender stabilizes the new one. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is removing prediction. When you stop demanding certainty, the field can reorganize. When you stop fixing outcomes, coherence emerges naturally. This is the law. Edges appear only a few times in a lifetime. Missed edges don't disappear. They close and return as heavier cycles later. That's why this feels urgent, because it is. The next phase is about choice, not belief, not hope. Choice collapses worlds. You don't drift across the edge. You choose. Every edge presents the same 7 choices. Most people fail not because they choose wrong, but because they try to choose both. That fractures coherence and collapses them back into the loop. Here are the 7 choices in front of you now. 1. Surrender versus control. Control feels intelligent. It feels responsible. But at the edge, control is an outdated operating system. Surrender is not passivity. It's removing the demand that reality behave according to past logic. The moment you stop micromanaging outcomes, probability reorganizes. Control tightens the loop. Surrender opens the field. 2. Trust versus fear. Fear always disguises itself as caution, but fear collapses contraction timelines instantly. Trust doesn't mean optimism. It means allowing uncertainty without bracing. Every time you relax into not knowing, you authorize the field to deliver outside pattern outcomes. Trust expands, fear compresses. 3. Isolation versus discerned connection. This is not about withdrawing from the world. It's about withdrawing attention from incoherent bonds. Some people cannot follow you across the edge. Staying connected to them out of loyalty keeps you split across timelines. Discernment isn't cruelty, it's physics. 4. Old identity versus new container. You cannot carry who you were into where you're going. Titles, roles, stories, even self-concepts must loosen. The new timeline requires a different container, lighter, less defined, more responsive. Identity rigidity collapses edges. Flexibility stabilizes them. 5. Gradual versus quantum. This is critical. You cannot inch across a quantum edge. There is no halfway collapse. Either you leap, or you recycle. Trying to ease into it signals hesitation to the field, and hesitation collapses backwards. 6. Victim versus creator. Not philosophically, mechanically. Victim consciousness observes from outside. Creator consciousness participates from coherence. The moment you own your role as observer-collapser, the loop dissolves. Responsibility unlocks agency. 7. Alone versus collective. No one crosses alone, not energetically. When you choose alignment with others operating at coherence, morphic resonance accelerates stabilization. Isolation slows the field. Collective coherence amplifies it. Each choice collapses a timeline. You don't need to choose all 7 perfectly. You need to stop choosing both sides. Now I'm giving you the exact protocol. Not theory, not inspiration. A system that works because it aligns with how the quantum field actually responds. Follow it precisely. 1. Recognize the edge. Say, out loud or internally, I am at the edge. Old patterns cannot carry me forward. This names the state. Naming stabilizes awareness. 2. Stabilize the nervous system. For 3 minutes, inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. Exhale through the mouth for 6. While breathing, repeat, I am safe in uncertainty. This trains the body to stop demanding collapse. 3. Release attachments list. Write down everything you're trying to control. People, outcomes, timelines, identities. Then say, I release my grip. I keep my direction. Direction without grip preserves coherence. 4. Define non-negotiables. List 3 values you will not violate. Truth, integrity, presence, freedom. Not goals. Values anchor timelines without dictating form. 5. 1 quantum-aligned choice daily. Each day, take 1 action that feels aligned but unfamiliar. The field responds to action, not intention. 6. Track synchronicities nightly. Before sleep, note any alignment signals. This trains attention toward emergence instead of lack. 7. Communicate with the quantum self. Visualize the version of you who already crossed. Ask 1 question. Listen without forcing language. This strengthens timeline coherence. 8. Complete the leap. Say this once with full presence. I choose coherence over repetition. I step now. Do not repeat it. Repetition signals doubt. Once spoken, act accordingly. This protocol doesn't make the leap. It removes resistance so the leap can occur. The next phase explains what happens after. Here's exactly what happens after the choice collapses. Not metaphorically, mechanically. First 60 seconds. There is a quiet, not peace, clarity. The internal pressure drops. Your body exhales before your mind understands why. The quantum field registers commitment immediately. You won't feel euphoric, you'll feel settled. That's coherence locking in. First hour. Your perception sharpens. Colors feel slightly brighter. Sounds cleaner. The mind tries to reassert old questions, but they no longer grip. You're no longer searching, you're available. Availability is what the field responds to. First day. Reality starts answering without being asked. A message arrives. A delay dissolves. Something that felt stuck moves without force. This isn't manifestation. It's friction disappearing because you're no longer collapsing resistance timelines. First week. People reorganize. Some drift away naturally. No conflict, no drama. Others appear effortlessly. Conversations feel different. Less performance, more precision. Your energy stabilizes higher without effort. First 2 weeks, your body recalibrates. Sleep changes, appetite shifts, old stress patterns release. This is cellular information updating. Cells respond to coherent signals faster than minds. First month, opportunities align that would have required strain before. Creativity flows without pushing. Money, support, resources begin moving, not dramatically, but smoothly. Smoothness is the signature of alignment. First 3 months, identity stabilizes around presence rather than narrative. You stop asking, "Am I doing this right?" because that question belongs to the loop. Confidence emerges without bravado. 6 months. The old life feels distant, not painful, irrelevant. You're no longer managing reality. You're moving with it. This is the new baseline. This is what coherence looks like in time. Now understand this clearly. The window is not permanent. Edges are openings created by collective and individual coherence peaks. Right now, the collective field is unstable, which makes quantum leaps easier for those who are ready. This isn't manipulation, this is physics. When the field stabilizes again, edges close. Missed edges don't vanish, they calcify. They return later as heavier lessons, longer cycles, more resistance. That urgency you feel? It's not pressure. It's resonance with a closing gate. Globally, observer loops are destabilizing. Old systems, identities, narratives are collapsing because they can no longer maintain coherence. Humanity is at a bifurcation point. Timeline split. Neutrality is collapsing. Indecision is collapsing. Only coherence carries forward. If you act now, the field carries you. If you hesitate, you carry yourself, and it's heavier. Your future self already crossed. That's why the pull is so strong. The question isn't if, it's when, and whether you do it with momentum or resistance. The waiting is over. Your leap was never personal. It only felt personal while you were observing from inside the loop. At the quantum level, consciousness is not isolated. It's entangled. Every coherent shift you stabilize sends a ripple through the unified field. That ripple weakens identical loops in others, people you've never met, people who will never know your name. This is how evolution actually happens. Not through ideology, not through force, through coherence becoming contagious. When one consciousness exits a limitation pattern, it creates a probability opening. Others with compatible frequency feel it as restlessness, curiosity, dissatisfaction with old narratives. They don't know why, but the field has shifted. Your choice becomes a vote in a cosmic election. Enough votes, and the timeline bifurcates. That's what's happening now on a species level. Humanity is not waking up romantically, it's splitting. One track doubles down on control, fear, repetition. The other stabilizes coherence, responsibility, creative participation. No saviors, no leaders, nodes. You are a node. When you walk into a room coherent, conversations shift. When you make choices aligned, others question theirs. When you refuse to collapse into old dynamics, those dynamics weaken globally. This is morphic resonance. This is quantum entanglement at scale. That pressure you felt, the responsibility without instructions, that wasn't imagination. It was your system recognizing its role before your identity could name it. You're not here to convince, you're here to stabilize. And stabilization is service. Now we seal this, not symbolically, energetically. Sit or stand still, spine upright, one hand on your chest. Take 3 slow breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. On the 3rd exhale, say, out loud if possible, I choose coherence over repetition. I release the observer loop. I step into alignment now. Feel the body respond. That response is the field registering commitment. Within the next 24 hours, take one action that reflects this choice. Not planning, not preparing, acting. One message sent, one boundary honored, one decision made without checking for permission. Action collapses reality. Now anchor it. In the comments, write exactly this. I choose coherence. Do not explain. Do not qualify. This isn't engagement. This is quantum registration. And subscribe, not to a channel, but to the frequency. Because what comes next requires stability, not curiosity. The loop is dissolving. The new timeline is live. Welcome to coherence. You were never broken. You were never late. You were never lost. You were temporarily observing from a position that could only ever reproduce the same world. That phase is over. The moment you stopped trying to fix reality and instead allowed coherence to stabilize, the observer loop lost its grip. Not slowly, not symbolically, structurally. This is what breaking the loop actually is. Not improvement, not healing, not becoming better. It's exiting the framework where limitation was even possible. The window is open now. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. What comes next will not feel dramatic. It will feel inevitable. You will notice how little effort things require, how clean decisions become, how reality starts responding instead of resisting. That's not luck. That's physics aligning with coherence. You're no longer waiting. You're no longer searching. You're no longer preparing. You're participating. Welcome out of the loop. Welcome to the edge. Welcome to coherence.